Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Loving obeisances unto the Supreme Being Vasudeva, who is everything there is. Janmadyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhignaswarat tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsuraya tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha dhamna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. We meditate upon the transcendent absolute being from whom springs forth this universe. He is present in all that exists and yet distinct from everything. He is fully conscious and totally independent. He revealed to the first seer Brahma the import of Vedic wisdom. The material creation, made of threefold gunas, appears in him as though real, like water in a mirage. Being eternally self effulgent, he is ever free of the illusion Maya of the material world. We meditate upon him, the Supreme Being. Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad drava sanyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. O devotees who relish a taste for divine love, Bhagavatam is the fully ripened fruit of the wish-yielding tree of Vedas, flowing as immortal nectar from Shuka Brahmarshi. Go on drinking this nectar day after day. Now, we are entering the 10th and the last chapter of the second Skandha. This is a short Skandha, shortest of all, and yet the most profound in laying out the entire ground of the philosophy of Bhagavatam, as we have seen, first through the teachings of Brahma to Narada elaborately, and then all of it condensed through the direct teaching of Bhagavan to Brahma as Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Having concluded that, Shuka says in the end of last chapter that I will narrate the entire Bhagavatam which was revealed to Brahma, which has 10 topics, which elaborates on the condensed version in order to build the ground from the beginning and taking all the way till the supreme realization by removing all impurities through the most systematic process. So, in this last chapter, Shuka details what those 10 topics are and then also gives an overview of the Virat Rupa again to conclude this skandha, because that's how we began this skandha. So first he gives the 10 topics. They are in the order. First we will see the names in Sanskrit. The 10 topics are Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Poshana, Uti, Manvantara, Ishanukatha, Nirodha, Mukti, Ashraya. So these are the 10 topics, and the first 9 topics are meant to take us to the 10th topic, which is complete abidance. So Ashraya, which is the 10th topic, is the complete abidance in the supreme shelter of the Supreme Being. And that is the purpose of Bhagavatam. To not just give the teaching, but to take the listener to total abidance in the teaching, in the supreme truth, in the transcendent absolute being. And that is Ashraya. So the first 9 topics are to take gradually, as we said, build the ground so that all impurities are removed, and systematically take one to the 10th, which is the final topic, which is the essence of all spiritual endeavors. So now, starting from the first topic is called Sarga, which means creation, which is, as we have seen already as a hint, the primary creation of all the elements, the subtle elements and the gross elements being earth, water, fire, air, and space, and the subtle elements being the Mahat, the cosmic intelligence, mind, ego, and Brahma, because Brahma is the first created being. So the primary creation, which is Sarga, is the creation of the three gunas, time, and the gross and the subtle elements. And with that, Brahma, who is the first created being, who was instructed to do tapas, as we saw, in order to go forth with creating other animate and inanimate beings. And that process of Brahma creating animate and inanimate beings is the secondary creation, which is Visarga. So here in itself, there is an important point to note that though we say Brahma is the creator, he is only the secondary creator. The primary creation is from the Supreme Being. That's Sarga, first topic. Second topic is Visarga, secondary creation. The third topic is called Sthana. And Sthana or Sthiti means order. So the perfect order that is there in the universe, which is what we call as Ishvara, the way in which everything functions perfectly, starting from the most subatomic level to the galactic level, how the atoms, how the cells of the body, how the planets of the solar system, how the various galaxies, everything is in order. And so that order, which is why physical laws are even discoverable. If everything is happening in a chaotic way, then there can be no laws of physics. So the fact that there is so much order, that there are laws of physics that can be discovered because of the inherent order, that order is called sthiti or sthana. Fourth is porshana, which is grace or mercy. So in addition to the order that is there, it's not insentient order, but the order is conscious, as we always narrate the first verse of Bhagavatam. The source of the universe is fully conscious and totally independent. So this source is also full of grace, and that grace is called as Poshana. So anyone who looks upon the source of the universe as the sentient being, the supreme being, and recognizes that the supreme being alone is immediately enveloped in this grace, and that grace is the fourth topic, Poshana. The fifth topic is what is called as Uti. Uti means the latent desires. So as we saw, one of the essential aspects of the universe is the latent desires of all beings. So the latent desires are beginningless because it comes from cycle after cycle, and therefore we can never trace the beginning of the latent desires. And these latent desires, which result in various activities and result in the sense of I and mine, is called Uti. And then the next topic is Manvantara. Manvantara is the account of the various presiding figures of each era. So Manu, as we have already seen, is the word from which the word man comes as well. Manu is the first man that Brahma creates in each kalpa. So kalpa is a collection of yugas, and we will see all this, the whole, because Parikshit actually asked this question about time itself, and so how time is arranged in yugas and kalpas will all be covered as part of the next skandha. But at a high level, Manvantara means every time a Manu changes, Manu Antara becomes Manvantara. And so each Manvantara is when there is a new Manu comes forth. And so the whole topic of how each Manu comes forth and establishes the code of Dharma, which is called as the Manu Dharma Shastra, that is the topic of Manvantara. Then the next topic is called Ishanu Katha, which is the stories of the avatars of the Supreme Being and the devotees. As we have alluded to, this is an essential aspect of Bhagavatam, the Ishanu Katha. And so that is the next topic. And then the next topic is called Nirodha. Nirodha means stopping or withdrawing completely. So the effect of listening to all these topics leading up to Ishanu Katha, the stories of the avatars and the devotees, makes the mind withdraw from worldly attachments and stop, as it were. The mind, which keeps on moving here and there due to desires, due to being pulled in various directions, when it is focused on these topics, on understanding the order of the universe and the grace that's available, and the understanding the latent desires that causes all problems, and then understanding the way of dharma, and then hearing the stories of avatars and devotees which go directly to the heart. So in this sequence, when it is listening to all this, it stops the mind, and that's Nirodha. And that results in the next topic called Mukti. Mukti means, as many know, liberation. When the mind stops completely, then there is already liberation. That leads to liberation. And the last topic, as we said, is Ashraya. So liberation is not the end in itself. It is not, or to put it differently, it is not a liberation in some void, as some would have it, but it is a liberation that leads to the realization of the Supreme Being of God, of Bhagavan, as the only truth, as Vasudeva. So that is called Ashraya, that is the highest truth. So that is the sequence. So Shuka beautifully gives this sequence. Again, it's primary creation, secondary creation, order of the universe, latent desires of beings, the various manus and the dharma shastras, the stories of avatars and devotees, causing next withdrawal of the mind or stopping of the mind, liberation, and finally abidance in the Supreme Being. So these 10 topics are introduced by Shuka here, and he says these 10 topics will be covered in the whole of Bhagavatam, which will unfold over the next 10 skandhas. So it doesn't necessarily mean that each skandha corresponds exactly to one topic. There are some commentators who say that way and some who say differently. But looking at Bhagavatam itself, it can be said that some of the skandhas are dedicated to a particular topic, but some topics spread across various skandhas. For example, especially Ishanu Katha, the stories of devotees and avatars, comes in all the skandhas. We already saw some stories in the first skandha itself of Bhishma, of Kunti, of Dhritarashtra, and then of the Pandavas. These are all stories of devotees. And we, of course, also saw the direct story of Bhagavan saving Parikshit. So stories come in all the skandhas except the second skandha, because second skandha, as we saw, is a short but dense and direct teaching of the philosophy itself. And otherwise there is stories in other skandhas. So there are some topics that spread across multiple skandhas, and there are some topics that are exclusively in a particular skandha, like Manvantaras and Sthiti and so on. And finally, what it leads to is, of course, abidance or ashraya, which is the total abidance in the Supreme Being. So with this introduction, that or the overview that Shuka Brahmarshi gives Parikshit, the second skandha is coming to an end. He, of course, also after that gives a brief overview again of the Virat Rupa, because he began the skandha with Virat Rupa. So he again ends it with Virat Rupa to emphasize that that is the first topic, that is Sarga. In fact, the first topic, Sarga, primary creation, and to some extent the second topic, which is the creation of Brahma, are also covered in the second skandha, because the essential topic of this skandha has been the mystery of creation itself. which is the first two topics. So, in order to conclude the Skandha, Shuka again gives an overview of this topic of creation by saying the cosmic being Vishwarupa, after emerging, he abided in the waters, causal waters, and he in fact gives here the beautiful meaning of the word Narayana. The Supreme Being is called Nara because Nara means a person, and he spawned these causal waters called Nara. From Nara comes Nara, and then he resided in those in his own waters, and therefore he is called Narayana. So Ayana means either residing or moving. That's why Ramayana means Ram's movement or Ram's journey. Here Narayana means residing in the water, and the water comes from Nara. So Nara, Nara, Narayana. So giving the meaning of the word Narayana, which is again a very sacred word, we'll again later see a whole story on the glory of this very name Narayana and how it saved Ajamila. So here we see the meaning of the word Narayana. Then he says after this that this Narayana, the Supreme Being, taking the Virat Rupa, he of course spawned all the elements, as we saw this already too. He gives it briefly again that he spawned all the elements, and then the latent desires of all the beings came forth, time came forth, and then from there the senses came forth, and then prana, the essential life energy, came forth, and then from there each sense organ came forth, the mouth and taste with and speech and fire, both from the mouth, taste and speech, nose and the faculty of smell and wind, eyes and light and therefore sun and color, ears and therefore sound and the Vedas, which is the first sound beginning with Om, skin and touch, which is wind, and then these are the senses of perception or what's called Jnanendriyas, and then the senses of action or Karmendriyas, that is hands, which are for grasping or holding, that's Indra, feet, which are for movement, which is Vishnu. So Vishnu takes the position of feet. That's why feet is always called lotus feet. And when we look at the Virat Rupa, though the entire cosmic being is Narayana, the feet is especially his own expansion as Vishnu. And then copulation or reproduction is Prajapati, which is the fourth Karmendriya. The first was already mentioned as speech, which comes from mouth, which is an activity. So copulation is Prajapati, and then disposing waste or excretion is Mitra, the deity called Mitra. So, and after spawning all this, he also spawned the air Apana, which causes death. Prana causes life. Apana is the one that leaves the body when death happens. And then he spawned the subtle elements, which are heart and mind, and along with that the presiding deity as moon, and then the faculty of will, and then from these the what is called the dhatus or the various elements such as the bodily elements of blood and marrow and bones and all that came forth, and thereby he manifested the gross and the subtle form, and from this Brahma was given the faculty and the also the teaching, as we saw, so that he could in turn spawn animate and inanimate beings. And then Shuka of course again emphasizes that the gross and the subtle form, that comes forth are all due to Maya. Though he is actionless, the Maya seems to act just as the water in a mirage seems to move even though there is no actual water, there is only light there. The sunlight seems to appear as a mirage, and there is also a movement seen in the water of the mirage. Similarly, through the Maya, the light of the Supreme Being seems to engage in all these various activities, such as creating the gross elements, the subtle elements, various animate and inanimate beings, the three gunas, and the deities for creation, sustenance, and destruction, and all the rest. But having said this, Shuka Brahmarshi again emphasizes that please note that he is beyond any words can describe. All that I have described as the cosmic being, or before as the Paramatma, which is the indwelling spirit in the heart, are both only expressions of him in an expansion, and his true essential nature is beyond anything that the words can ever conceive or capture. So he says, Ittam bhavena katito bhagavan bhagavattamah na ittam bhavena hi param drashtum arhanti surayah. He says, though I have described him in this way, Bhagavan, the Supreme Being, the wise ones do not regard him only as this. They know that these are only a partial description of him, and he is beyond all descriptions, because he has no doership in relation to any of these activities. So even the appearance of cosmic being, the Virat Rupa, which is shown in Bhagavad Gita as well, and now described in detail in this Skandha multiple times, this Virat Rupa is also only an appearance, and it is not him having any sense of doership, but his energy Maya manifests this while he remains untouched by it. So he says the Supreme Being has no doership in relation to creation and all the activities. They are ascribed to him only to be denied later, because they are only superimposed upon him by Maya. So this is the essence of Vedanta also, that the appearance of creation, sustenance, and destruction of this universe is superimposed on the absolute truth, and then it is later negated as well, to see that the only truth there is the Supreme Being and nothing else. So that's what Bhagavatam beautifully summarizes the essence of Vedanta by saying, Nasya karmani janmadau parasya anubhidiyate kartrutva pratishedhartam mayaya aropitam hitat. He says there is no doership for him starting from creation and so on for the Supreme Being. Kartrutva pratishedhartam, the doership is simply imposed on him through Maya, or pratishedharta means it is for negating it, that it is superimposed through Maya. Mayaya aropitam. Aropitam means superimposed. So this doership is superimposed through Maya in order to be negated. And therefore, that is the essence of the Supreme Being. And then he says that I will now tell you about Kalpa and Mahakalpa. That is the measure of time which you have asked about. He is telling Parikshit. And everything else will be explained as we embark on the next Skandha, which will go about with these topics, the 10 topics, through various discourses and various stories. And with this, Shuka Brahmarshi concludes this Skandha, and Shaunaka, who is listening in the Naimisharanyam forests from Suta Maharishi, asks, as a reminder, that he is still waiting to hear about Vidura, because as we saw, Vidura in the first Skandha, we didn't exactly know what happened to Vidura. Vidura went during the Mahabharat war on a great pilgrimage, Tirtha Yatra, and then he comes back to take Dhritarashtra back. But when he went on this pilgrimage for a long time, where all he went, whom all he met, we only got a quick reference that he met Maitreya and Uddhava, who are great beings, but we didn't know what exactly transpired. So Shaunaka asks, by the way, O great Sutta Maharishi, we are also curious about what Vidura heard from meeting the great sage Maitreya and also the great friend of Krishna Uddhava. And Sutta Maharishi responds by saying, it is very appropriate that you ask this question, because what Shuka Brahmarshi is going to narrate now is exactly through the discourse between Vidura and Uddhava, and then Vidura and Maitreya. So both tied together so beautifully. So he says, O Shaunaka, you asked the right question, and Shuka is going to embark on the exact discourse through which the next Skandha is going to unfold. With this, Sutta Maharishi says, we can all now listen to Shuka Brahmarshi narrate the discourse between Vidura and Uddhava as we begin the next Skandha, and thus we end this chapter and end this Skandha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.